Great job, Paul.
Yeah, that was
That's
awesome.
cool. I forgot for like the entire middle part that I was even on a podcast.
Hey, welcome to episode 147 of Front Seat Gamer. I'm Nick. I'm here with Blake.
Hey.
And special guest Paul. How's it
Hey.
going, Paul?
Good.
Welcome to your first ever podcast. Welcome to the best podcast.
The best.
Well, welcome to a podcast.
A podcast. Welcome to
What's
a
the best one
podcast.
I've been in?
There you go.
How many have you
officially,
been?
that's going to be our tag for this podcast going forward. The
Yeah.
best one I've been in.
Yeah.
Dash Paul.
I just gotta hope you never be in another podcast with anybody else.
So Severn is busy with life and baby and just general Severn things. So Paul's going to be with us, hopefully, for as long as needed.
Yeah.
Unless we deeply offend you. So Paul,
Well, it's
why
more
are you so
likely
ugly?
I
No.
run. It's more likely I run out of things to talk about.
Now, usually we start off an episode talking about what we've been playing, and today's the same.
Well, do we want to intro in like who Paul is? Because
No. Okay,
Paul-
yeah, okay. Paul is a web dev at what I would say like the web dev at GGG. You are the head. I don't know the exact title.
Yeah, technically I'm lead.
Yeah. Jonathan once said to me that web development is insane, and he thinks only crazy people can get into it because it's so
That
insane.
kind of checks out.
And so
Sorry to the other web
Yeah,
devs.
but when he was trying to explain to me like there's all these things that like all these various code styles that have to hook up, and I don't know. He was trying to explain it to me. I'm too dumb to get it, but the end result was that I understood web dev to be complicated and messy, and
It's definitely messy. I'm sure just about everything else can be as complicated in its own way.
no. Hey Blake, is art complicated?
yeah, I can get complicated. You could try your best to keep things in an orderly fashion and keep things organized, but just over the course of development, things get
Yeah, because everything still has to work. And fit
everything
with
still has
everything.
to work. Yeah, and
okay.
especially for a game like this where it's like it's the one game that you're working on for like 10 plus years. You still
Yeah.
have 10 plus years of baggage that you have to keep supporting.
Yeah.
You can't just come in one day and be like, let's reorganize the entire like art structure. Can't do that.
Have you tried though?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I found out you can't.
How many times did it break the build?
Oh, just completely destroyed.
Yeah.
Web dev on Path of Exile is a particularly interesting beast because it all has to hook into the game files, and we have the capacity to display
Characters and items, and
Exactly,
there's a whole
on the-
trade site that's
on the
its own
forum and
thing, kind of. Yeah.
Of course, there's the trade site, and then there's always like displaying changes for patch notes and
Mm.
all sorts of stuff. So, it does seem intense.
It's
So
definitely up there. It gets real
why do
hectic.
you do it?
I don't really know. I just ended up a web developer.
What did you start out thinking you would do?
Biology.
Whoa!
Yeah, I went to
Really?
uni. Yeah, did entire first year bio.
Wow.
And then in the second half of the year picked up computer science, and it was easy. So I was like, okay.
Huh.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
I've never heard
It's
someone say
also
computer scientist.
Thomas, I think, graduated biology. Now he's sysadmin. Well, no, now he's like technical something,
Wow.
job title wise.
That's so. I find that fascinating because
Yeah.
a friend of the podcast, Jake, was doing neuroscience and then went into
Oh,
it.
really?
So what is it with people doing essentially some sort of biology or biology adjacent thing and going,
Well,
let's go with the opposite direction,
Mm.
computers.
but computers are just like simpler systems, right? Biology is still systems, just way more complicated.
I guess I see where you're coming from, but when I think about like computers, I think a lot of math. There's a lot of math involved.
Yeah, but the computers do most of the math for you.
Yeah, but you have to know the math, underlying math, to make them do the math properly, right? And then when
Yeah.
I think about biology, it's all kind of this. Okay, now this is based on no education, but it feels a little bit more loosey goosey.
This might be the
I
thing
think
that
once you-
offends Paul.
Once you get into the like nitty gritty of it, it really is like still math.
Yeah,
Right.
everything's math at some point.
Yeah.
Man, that is so crazy to be like. I went into like computer science because it was easier. Like computer
Yeah.
science to me sounds like the most complicated, one of the
Yeah.
most complicated things you could study for at all.
It's predictable, right? That's good. I
Yeah,
guess
biology
computers are all
had a
predictable.
lot more. You need to remember specific things.
Hmm.
Like I remember we had to do a whole exam comparing the respiratory systems of lobsters versus crayfish, and I'd only studied crayfish, so I was just like I could only remember
Yeah.
one side
Wow.
of
Are
it.
they different?
Yeah, I think if I'm remembering even the exam right.
I've always actually. Here's a question. I've always wondered, like,
Maybe it was lobsters against crabs or something.
lobsters-
I think it was lobsters versus crabs actually.
oh, okay, because I've always wondered, like, lobsters and crayfish seem so similar that I'm like, they must be
They are related,
related.
right?
Or I've always
I
wondered.
don't remember.
I've always wondered, are they
we're
just?
drifting into
I've-
dangerous territory?
I've also
here.
just wondered, are they the same thing, but they're called different things in different parts of the world? Like here, they're called crayfish, but in America, they're called lobster.
I think in
I don't know.
the U.S. they're called crawdads.
Crawdads.
Yeah, lobsters are definitely distinct from crayfish.
Okay. I don't think I've ever seen a lobster in real life.
What?
Yeah.
Have you been to any Chinese restaurant?
No, I mean like whole, like not cut up.
Yeah, have you been to any Chinese restaurant where they have it in the tank?
I don't think so.
You
I've
definitely
totally
have.
seen that.
Have you been to Mr. Lobster Private Kitchen?
I definitely remember if I went to a restaurant. with
Shout out to
lobster.
Mr. Lobster Private Kitchen. One of my favorite names for a restaurant ever. Also good food.
How's their lobster?
I don't know. I'm too poor to order the lobster. But the umcha is really good.
Nice.
That's dim sum for the U.S.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we're an international podcast. It's always good to.
Yeah.
So let's talk. As you can tell, this is a video game podcast based on all the chat we just had.
Oh,
Yep.
You guys have been playing a game.
Yeah, we've been playing Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Elden Ring came out.
Yeah.
How far through it are you, Paul?
I'm about level 70 now, I think.
Oh my god, everyone is so much further ahead than me.
Is there a level cap?
Actually, good point. Is there a level cap?
I mean,
don't
there's
know.
got to be a
don't
level
know.
cap in some capacity, but is it like, or is it 100?
I would imagine it was 100, but like I literally don't know because it
I
just
know you
seems...
can get higher than 100,
Yeah.
and that most people end up finishing the game in the early 100s.
Because there's got to be a point where, so for people that I guess that don't know, it's just like Dark Souls. You get souls.
Oh, another game that's like Dark Souls.
Another game like Dark Souls. You get souls for killing monsters, and then you use those souls to level up.
I think in this game they're called runes, though, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Which
I-
seems like such a. What's funny to me is I look at that game and it's the Dark Souls UI.
Yeah.
Like the text is the same. The like even when you're picking up the soul, I suspect even like the progression math is very similar.
It is. Yeah.
And they've just done a Control F souls runes.
Yeah, they straight up have, and like I still call the things bonfires, but they're called like sites of grace. In
Yeah.
Are they bonfires?
they look like a bonfire, except they don't have the sword sticking out of it, but
Oh,
they
that's-
do have like a glowy rune thing on,
Yeah.
on the top. Like, but
Or maybe
it's
they
still
just
like,
misplaced the swords. though.
yeah, they just
Control
like,
F sword.
they just
rune.
retextured the sword as a glowing thing, and it's like actually if you look at it, it is a sword, but it's just so bright and glowing you can't tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like, and you know, the more you go through the game, the more souls you need to level up. So there must be a point where to level up, you need like, you know, 100,000 souls or something. And at that point, it gets so difficult that it's like a soft cap, I guess you'd call it, right?
Yeah, you'd run out of being able to spend the amount of time doing
Yeah.
things. Although I have heard that there's like crazy rune farming things.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff. I don't now for context. I haven't played Elden Ring, but everybody around me seems to have played Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a ray of hope because early on, before Elden Ring came out, Nick said, I think I might get this.
No, even after Elden Ring came out,
Was it?
before I actually started looking
Yeah,
into
but
it.
yeah, exactly. And then you
started.
started looking into it, and you just started being like, "Nah, no way."
Okay.
What put you off?
Oh boy,
Yeah,
let's. Should we start this rant?
Yeah.
Um. So when we're talking about Dark Souls, Blake loves to talk about this moment in the game where there's a nest, and you duck down in the nest and you pretend you're an egg for like 10 seconds, 30 seconds.
It's probably like 15.
It's an amount of time that makes it uncomfortable.
It's an amount of time that have you played Dark Souls 1?
No.
Oh,
So
okay.
I barely played any Dark Souls games. Before
Really?
Elden
So
Ring.
this
I
is-
played a bit of Bloodborne,
Yeah.
but not really knowing any of the how you're supposed to play it.
Oh,
I was going
wow.
through super linearly, and I
Yeah.
had a point where I couldn't progress.
Yeah.
Turns out you're not even supposed to go that way, but I stopped playing
Oh.
because I couldn't get down this well.
Oh, right.
This it almost just only reinforces my point. So you pretend you're an egg, and then you wait there for an amount of time that feels uncomfortable,
Mm.
and then a bird picks you up and carries you to a secret boss. Now,
And you need to beat that secret boss, and you get an item from that to unlock a whole nother area of the game in Dark
Oh,
Souls
man.
1 that like you wouldn't have known was even there.
Yeah.
Like there's this giant painting in this place, and it just says you walk up to it and you can interact with it, and it just says like special item required. And you're just like, wow, what was that? Or you're like, well, maybe I'll find something along the way.
Yeah.
And like,
if they had just put a clue there instead,
I know,
as opposed
right?
to just a UI error.
and it's one of
Like-
those, and it's one of those things like I both like it and hate it that this whole like you crouch down and pretend to be an egg for like 30 minutes or something to unlock this entire section of the game.
It's so I get in like an age where there's wikis and stuff. This isn't necessarily a big problem.
Exactly, but like if you were just playing it yourself, like if I was playing that naturally and nobody told me about it, there is no way I ever.
There's a 0% chance. Yeah.
But when you, I mean, there might have been a slight chance, but like even the fact of like where that nest is, you have to do some like some like platforming to
hang on,
get there,
hang on,
and the
Yeah.
game is
hang on.
not really set up very well for platforming. But when you get to the nest, there is a interaction button that says "Become an egg,"
Okay.
and so you crouch down like that.
Become an egg.
You crouch down like that and pretend to be an egg, but you stay in that pose for so long that like most people would be like, "Oh yeah, okay, whatever. That's a weird
That didn't
thing,"
work, yeah.
and just go. It's like sticking it out to like an unreasonable amount of time is like unlocks the secret. And like knowing that going forward, there's been things where there's been other things in games where like you have to you can collect these poses in the game, so your character can like do a pose that's like praise the sun or kneel down or lie down or
And
whatever.
like Animal Crossing,
Yeah.
the other Souls-like game. I like.
Yes. Yeah. Tom Nook is is that Animal Crossing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's other places in other games where you have to unlock something, you have to strike a certain pose and hold it for an unreasonable amount of time. But like
Right.
knowing that means that anytime I see something that is like, I wonder, like, it's like I wonder if I'll unlock something by doing something for an unreasonable amount of time. And that
if I just
think,
really commit to this ridiculous thing,
yeah,
Yeah.
and I
maybe
think
something
that-
awesome will happen.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's going to come into what Nick also wants to talk about, where there was discovered a wall
Oh my
in
god.
in Elden Ring. So throughout all the Dark Souls games, there's been hidden walls,
Yeah.
and you just swipe at the wall, and it like disintegrates,
Yeah.
and there's a hidden passage. And so around all of the games, there's messages that players leave that say hidden wall, hidden path ahead, up against walls.
They're all lies.
And they all lie, and you hit them, and you're like, bullshit, whatever. Except there is this one wall that players have found that if you hit it 50 times, it will reveal a hidden area.
Yeah.
And like now, I'm like, were all those notes on the ground saying hidden wall, were they true? Do I just have to hit
You just
the
got to
wall?
go back and commit.
Yeah.
The thing is, okay, look, I love the idea from a developer standpoint where it's like, this is really funny. This is gonna troll a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Like, I like this, maybe there's a meta level there where it's
Mm.
like we know that players love to put hidden wall where there's no hidden wall, so let's make a hidden wall that is actually a hidden wall but requires you to really commit to it,
Mm.
and then they'll see this message and they'll hit it and nothing will happen. But there's something there. But then, from a player standpoint,
It's infuriating.
It's
It's
just
maddening.
it's and it's needless.
Because now in the back of
But
my
it's
mind,
also not important, right? Like that secret wall is just a secret wall to some optional content that I'm assuming is optional.
probably I
Is
don't
it
know
optional?
I don't know what's back there because I didn't look into it because I don't want to spoil it.
But
Yeah.
consider the psychological impact that has had on Blake, even where it's like, okay, yeah,
Now-
it's a hidden wall for some optional content,
Yeah.
but you had to do it so many times that now Blake is questioning every other method, every other message that says hidden
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah. Now if I see a blank wall that like this looks like I don't know, just looks like there might be something there. I'm just gonna have to wail on it
Yeah.
for like a minute.
Or
And I've
every,
already done that.
Every single
Yeah.
In the game.
position where it's like, oh, I have to hold a pose for a while. How long do I have to hold that pose for? It could be an hour. Who knows?
Yeah, I just walk away from the.
Yeah, it's just there are a lot of games where hidden information is like an important game design element. Minecraft kind of plays into this idea of like you build tools by you lay your things out in a shape, right? And you get the tool, and none of that is like obvious, and it's all sort of community driven. And Dark Souls operates on the same philosophy, and I hate it. I just hate it because if I buy a game and I don't want to interact with the community, I'm potentially missing out on literally entire areas of the game for not doing this, and having a worse experience as a result. And it feels there's like games like Kaizo Mario where
I've
like
seen clips of that.
where it's like you every time you jump there's probably like an invisible block that's going to knock you into a pit below. And it's a game that is built to like troll the player.
Yeah.
And Dark Souls is that, but it's you're paying $100 for it.
But
And
if you played it and never interacted with any of the secrets, you would still probably end up playing it for like 60 hours and enjoying the shit out of the game, right?
Okay, let me put it this way. In the same way that Kaizo Mario has these invisible blocks, you've also Dark Souls has like cliffs where it's like, oh sweet, I'm gonna walk over there. This looks like a thing to explore, and then the cliff falls out from beneath you and you die.
I don't know where this part that I've heard you talk about that part before.
I saw a
I've
clip.
not
It
not
exists.
seen it.
It 100% exists.
Is this in Elden Ring?
Yeah.
That's the start of the game. It's if you beat the
So
boss,
annoying.
there's a boss at the start of the game. If you
Oh.
beat it, then there's no point where the story continues. So the game has to kill you to get the story to
Yeah,
continue.
because most people, 99.9% of people will die to
Just
that
die to
first
that boss. Yeah,
So
That's the point. That's to teach you that dying in the game is
a part of the game.
So
But then it also teaches you to watch
if
out
you-
for
if
cliffs.
you- yeah, this is the thing.
But try jumping.
Yeah.
Or any time in the game, which is as I understand it, nearly constant, where you enter a room and from an angle you couldn't see, a dude jumps from the side and
Well, that teaches you to be careful. Like, so just this morning, I walked into a new area, and there I walked into this area. It was a big cave, and I saw on the far side of the wall these giant ants, like attached,
Yep.
clinging to the wall. And I was like, oh, okay. And there was like a tunnel that went that way, and I was like, oh, all right, I'm not going to go over there because I saw another tunnel that went out, and there was an item way down the end there. And as I walked out, I noticed that the tunnel then widened out into a larger cave, and I was like, remembering the ants that were on the wall. So I looked up, and clearly there was an ant right above there, waiting for me to like run through, and it would jump on me. But because I was aware of my surroundings, and because the game had shown you that ant, like before you even get there, there's ants on the wall to watch out for. I was aware of it, and I easily like beat that ant.
Do you understand you're boasting about beating an ant?
It was a big ant.
It can be an accomplishment
It was a big ant.
sometimes.
It was like a size of a horse.
I would
came
argue that
across
this is
one
less,
of the.
I would argue this is less about the signaling in this game and more about the 4 other Dark Souls style games you've played before this that use the same mechanics.
Yes. I mean, I can't see this game through fresh eyes. But
Yeah,
just so
but see-
happens we can.
Because the only one that I've played is Bloodborne, and I think from what I've heard is quite a different game to the other Dark Souls
But-
games.
yeah, I've not played Bloodborne, but I'm imagining it's still got a lot of that same kind of, you got to watch out for people around corners and stuff.
I don't remember so much of the around corners, but it was you have to figure out pretty early on that you're not supposed to kill everything.
Yeah, yeah,
I spent a long time trying,
yeah.
Mm.
I had a
which did probably help me going into Elden Ring
Yep.
because there's definitely some stuff you're not supposed to fight at the
yeah,
start
for
of the
sure.
game.
And I was like, I was saying this as well to a friend of mine who like, was in Auckland over a couple weekends ago, and I got him to play Elden Ring, and he's never played any Dark Souls games before, and he had that mindset of there's enemies, I have to kill them all.
Yeah.
And I was saying like you can just go past them. There's even bosses that you can just navigate around. It's not, you don't have to like fight every single thing in your path. Like for me, I treat it as if like, what if I am in this world? What would I be doing? And it's like, I'm not gonna be.
I'm gonna run away.
Yeah,
all the time.
I do a lot of running away.
I ran away a lot, and I started out as a character that had like nothing but a loincloth and a stick. And so like the first like 6 hours of my game was like hiding in bushes and like backstabbing people. Because I'm like, this is how I would be if I was in that world. I would be careful and not like just charge out there, because this game is like, it's not a power fantasy really. Not at least not until I guess you get later on with crazy weapons and stuff.
Yeah, apparently
or some spells.
Yeah, yeah. But when especially the first few hours is absolutely not a power fantasy. Like for one thing, the first boss you encounter within the first minute of gameplay kills you outright. And then the next enemy that you encounter is also a boss who will just kill you outright. Like,
Fun.
Yeah. So, but it teaches you to like, okay, it teaches you that the second boss that you see is like this big golden guy on a horse that's like walking back and forth, and he's literally like the first enemy in front of you that you can see. So like fighting him, if you're like, there's an enemy, fight him, charge in there, boom, get one shot and die. That teaches you that like, okay, if people look tough, they probably are tough. So be cautious with it, you know? Like there are plenty of other games that I've played where it's like, this thing looks tough. Yep. You know, I should be cautious around it, and then you just wreck it because, you know, it's like a power fantasy or whatever.
Yeah. I have no issue with that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't mind even like the idea of death as a progression mechanic or as part of the core game loop.
Yeah.
There's lots of games that do that well. My issue primarily stems from information hidden and mechanics that are overly punishing for no other reason than I guess it's funny, which I guess that can be a reason.
Yeah.
But like if it pushes past the point into frustration, that's where I start.
I get you, but I've not come to a point yet in that game where it's crossed that threshold of frustration and being like, this is actually just like I was saying before the podcast, that these Dark Souls games are tough but fair, right? And I
just don't agree.
There's very few. I feel that there's very few parts in those games that have crossed that threshold of just being tough and not fair.
Well, Paul, you've been playing.
Yeah.
You said you're level 70?
Yep. Roughly.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, for the most part.
For the most part.
Just about every time I've been fighting something and died, it's because I made like a mistake that I like hadn't learned the attack patterns of the boss yet, or was doing something that I shouldn't be doing. And the only other times when I've died and I couldn't really have avoided it were just because of like some bug or camera angle. Camera angle is really the thing that I'm thinking of. The camera swings around and it's a giant boss and you just can't actually see what's going on anymore.
Right. Yeah. That doesn't sound great. But I will say, I don't mind games where like death in combat is frequent. So I don't know if you guys watch Donkey videos.
Don't think so.
No, you got me to watch his videos on Zelda though.
He just put out one on Elden Ring,
right? And
his viewpoint is too hard,
right?
And this is a guy. He said he beat it 4 times.
Jeez.
And he's a very good
Yeah.
gamer. And his philosophy basically is like a lot of moves one shot you in an unfair way, or lock you into like a stun in an unfair way that just still feels like one shot, or things just deal too much damage. And like all the imbalances stuff, it's like whatever. What my biggest criticism, I guess, is here's an example. Can you learn an enemy's attack patterns without dying a bunch?
Yeah. Maybe not a boss.
You maybe could though, if you were just committing to rolling a lot and
Like,
had good stamina regen.
Yeah, like I've definitely beaten bosses first attempt, and
Yeah,
I've
same.
learned their stuff. But that's also because like, there's different sort of levels of bosses in the game. Like there are mini bosses that are in those little dungeons.
Yep.
They're a lot easier to beat like first time. They just don't do as much damage. But then the sort of main bosses have taken me several attempts to.
I actually have had more luck with main bosses than I have the side ones.
Really? Wow.
But that will partially be because I did a lot of just going off and exploring. So when I
so
was
maybe
lower
a little
level, I
yeah.
was encountering more of the side things.
Look, I think it's a game that appeals to me because I love open worlds. I love like truly open worlds where it's like you can go anywhere and do anything.
You can climb mountains and find a Korok seed.
Yep. And I love a good boss fight. And I love the idea of the open-ended character builds this game presents.
Yeah.
But then when I see these things like cliffs that just collapse underneath,
You hung up on that cliff,
or a wall that takes 50 hits, or you're walking by and a dragon falls out of the sky on you. And there's there's all these things where it's like maybe it's signals, but maybe the signals are too subtle, and in all likelihood you miss them and you get owned by something that feels very unexpected, and you do this literally hundreds of times.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, is this something I really want to commit like 60 plus hours of my life?
How
to?
do you
I just don't know.
How do you get to that, like being afraid in a game without having punishment be the way that pushes you towards being afraid in the first place?
Okay. Why don't I use my favorite example, which is Breath of the Wild.
Oh god.
So that's a game that follows a very similar structure to Elden Ring. It's an open world. Have you played Breath of the Wild?
I have, but I didn't finish it. I don't typically finish games.
Breath of the Wild, I suspect, is way easier than any Souls game, but it shares some common features. But early on in Breath of the Wild, you have to make your way to a dungeon on the first starting plateau, and the dungeon is sort of in the corner of a sort of maze thing.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of like guardians that are paralyzed. Like they're rusty, but they still can aim and shoot.
Yeah, I
and they can't
remember
move.
that.
And those things lock onto you, start making a bunch of noise. You get a sense that they're aiming at you, and then they fire a huge damaging blast at you that I think will basically one-shot you. But you've got a ton of time to notice and understand that you're being targeted. It's making these scary noises you never encountered before. It makes, I think, different combat music.
Yeah.
And there's also plenty of opportunities to hide.
Yeah. But isn't that still more like action than suspense?
What do you mean?
Well, it's because suspense to me is more the side of like thrillers and stuff, where someone's going down a corridor and the music changes, maybe gets more spooky.
Like you don't know what's in the dark.
Yeah.
Basically, you're walking through an unknown area. You don't know what's ahead of you. And
versus the kind of, you can see that there's an enemy there, and that's still scary if it's that you're going to die, but it's a different kind of scary.
Yeah, sure. I see where you're coming from with that. Yeah, it's a different style of game. I think Dark Souls is very much more into the horror side of things, like even just from an art style perspective. All the jagged bones and like body horror stuff going on. even then, I don't know. Jump scares feel cheap to me in a film,
Mm.
Yep, that's true.
and
I think so as well.
and it feels like a lot of the Dark Souls games
Mm.
are like jump scare the game.
There's definitely the jump scare element. Like I was saying, that ant would
Yeah,
have jump scared me if I wasn't. And the Dark Souls 1 slimes are a perfect example because the first time you encounter one, it falls on your head and takes off half your life. You know,
mm-hmm.
and that's your first encounter with it. There was no way of knowing that that was going to happen. It's
Yeah.
like that's its way of teaching you. And if you're on half life, that just kills you.
When you say it, you keep saying it teaches you these things, and I don't necessarily disagree that it's teaching you something. But there are ways to teach you these things that aren't, haha, you died, idiot.
No, I get you. And like I said, the ant thing is a prime example, right?
Yeah.
Because it shows you that.
Yeah.
It shows you
That
right up
sounds like
front.
a good.
Yeah.
But
I'm saying the slime one is
Yeah.
not a good example
Yeah.
of that.
yeah.
You
But
know?
But even then, you said it takes half your health,
Yeah.
so you would still survive that.
You
and
would still
potentially-
survive
you're
it
on full health.
If you're on full health.
Yeah.
Like if
If
you're
you're-
below half health, or even like because you can not upgrade your health. People are on varying levels of health.
Mm.
So it takes when I encountered it, it took off half my life. But another person who had built their character different might have less health, and it might just kill them.
there's an example specific to Elden Ring. I don't. This might be spoilers. I don't know. I haven't played it. This is all this is all secondhand. But there's an enemy type that is invisible and backstabs you and has a bunch of health and runs away.
Wait, is this an Elden Ring?
Yeah.
I've
There's a
not
boss.
encountered these.
There's a boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, what?
Right. Okay. The fact that you're even saying that, and you're like, I would say the biggest like Dark Souls
Well,
fan I know.
here's also a thing I wonder is that I encountered an invisible person, an invisible NPC,
Oh.
and I could not interact with them, and
How did you even know there was an NPC
because they were
there?
calling to me, they were like, "Hey, I'm over here. Why can't look at me? Why can't you see me?" Like,
Oh, interesting.
maybe
you know.
this is the teaching tool that a lot of people missed. But I know that there is a way to reveal this.
is there an
invisible thing.
item or something?
I'm not. Do you want to spoil it?
No, don't. If
Okay.
I that's what I was gonna say. I was like, I bet there is, because when I encountered that NPC that was invisible, I was like, I'm sure there's like something I'll find that will reveal,
Yeah.
like hidden something or other, and then
Yeah.
I'll be able to
Yeah.
go back to that character.
Yeah. So I think you may have found the teaching tool, but I think a lot of players
Yeah.
didn't.
Well,
I didn't.
that teaching, like that NPC is off the path a little bit. Like it's in an area that all the players have gone to and
Yeah.
would be frequenting a lot,
Yeah.
but it's in a section of it that's just slightly off to the side a bit. And the only reason I found it was because I was running away from a bigger enemy, and I ran through a bush, and I heard someone go, "Hey, over here!" And then I was too busy running,
Yeah.
and then I went back to that bush and was like, "Where is this NPC?" And then I sort of found there's an invisible character somewhere around there.
So I think so this is just an example
Mm.
where it's like you could have put that guy on the main path
Yeah, exactly.
and it would have been
Yeah,
totally fine.
Yeah,
He's invisible.
yeah,
People are still gonna miss him.
yeah.
You could have put him near this boss, and maybe he is. I don't really know, but like, I suspect that, and you know what? I'm not even positive that the item that reveals the boss is the item that reveals this NPC. I just don't know. But there are ways to lump the teaching tool
Mm.
and the challenge sort of together at least, so that the
Yeah.
player can still has a chance.
I know what you mean. Like going back to those ants, right? If
Yep.
if those
That's an
ants,
example of a challenge that could
and it's like right there. But for this invisible guy, if that NPC is the teaching tool, he's off the path.
Yep.
Probably in the very early stage of the game, wherever this invisible boss is, I've not gone to him, so he's in some later stage.
Yep.
Like you'd have to somehow remember, like
Well, I also
50 hours later.
never got the thing that revealed him.
right.
When I fought him, he was still going invisible.
Did you
all the
beat him?
time. Yeah.
Oh my god, how did you manage that?
So, explaining will give away some of the
Alright,
mechanic.
All right. Can you see his footsteps at least?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I have
He's
seen...
in water, and you can see the water. the
Oh,
footprints in the water.
interesting.
Sorry for any spoilers for anyone that still wanted to figure that out.
There's a different way to do it. I won't spoil that.
All
either.
right. Yeah.
but that's it's fine. I just think there are ways to signal like
I get it.
and it's a solution or whatever.
I get it. You can easily miss stuff, but I
And
also kind
for
of
me personally,
like
at
that,
least,
though.
yeah, totally. But for me, you don't have a baby. You don't have this limited like gaming time.
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have the constant sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
That's definitely not going to help.
Yeah,
And-
I understand because this game is exhausting.
Yeah.
Oh my
Like to
God.
play. Like I think the longest I've played solid is maybe like 4 hours, and after that I'm just like tired from playing it.
I think I did do a couple like just Saturdays, but
Yeah.
I don't usually play it when I get home from work.
Right. Yeah, neither
I
do
wait
I.
for the weekends.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's not a 2 hours after work game.
Yeah.
Like
So what you're saying is it's work to play.
it is a little bit. It does sort of feel like a little bit like that because you get into this like you get sort of stressed out a little bit and
Yeah.
like you're heightened, like you're on the edge of your seat, like
Yeah.
you're
Hmm.
like it has an adrenaline
Yeah.
boost kind of thing.
There's an element of dread there.
Yeah,
going on.
yeah. And
I
like
get
you
it.
have to I feel like sitting down to play it, you know that you're going to be tested. It's going to be a tough
Yep.
thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be enjoyable. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm loving it, but
Yeah.
it's a thing of like it's not like Zelda where it's like I could play that for 2 hours or an hour and have a great time.
Yeah.
And not like in this, it's like you have to play it seriously, which
Yeah.
like I don't know
But
if
it is
that's the
still
best
very
way of,
fun.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
sure.
overcoming the difficulties in it
yeah,
is rewarding in a way that
Yeah.
other games just won't be.
yeah.
Same as like roguelikes and things like that, where you're gonna fail a lot before you succeed.
Mm,
And then the success just feels better because of it.
Sure.
mm.
Roguelikes at least have the random element, so you can blame some of that failure on like an external force
Hmm.
that is beyond your control. But also they often feel very fair as a result because there's like I know that I could have taken a different path, or I could have like there were options I could have taken that maybe would have ameliorated some of that later challenge.
Yeah.
Often roguelikes also have this compounding nature to them, where it's like my previous choices have impacted my current state,
Mm.
and as a result, my success rate.
Hmm.
And maybe Elden Ring and the Dark Souls games have these elements as well. It's just not as obvious, I guess. And there's not as much randomness for sure, right?
Other than attack patterns, sometimes you just end up with like the boss doing like the bad attack pattern a bunch of times in a row. And then you get like the block right the first 3 times, and then miss the block on the fourth
Right.
one, and then you
Yeah,
get
I get like talking about attack patterns with bosses. There's a thing I think I've noticed in this game that other Dark Souls games I don't remember doing where like it was obvious on that
I feel like I already know what you're gonna
that
say.
first boss. I don't know, that first boss.
Is it input reading?
No.
Okay.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
You press a button and they respond to the button press. Like you do a specific attack or whatever,
Yeah.
and they will dodge it, and it doesn't even matter if you're like aiming at them. They're just
Oh,
actually looking for
I've actually not noticed. Oh, I sort of have noticed that,
Okay.
but not quite.
Okay.
But I mean that so there was this boss at this like gate towards the first castle. I
Mm.
can't remember his name, like Margaret, I think, or something like that.
Ooh, tough name.
Yeah. And he's a pretty standard boss, big guy with a weapon that hits you. But the problem I was finding is that like he would raise his arm for an attack, right?
Mm.
And then I would go to dodge, but then he would hold his arm up longer.
Yeah.
And then I would be like, okay, dodge now. But he would hold it up even longer. And then I get hit. And I'm like it was so frustrating because it just felt like my natural rhythm of when I expected that attack to hit.
They mess with that a lot.
Yeah.
too.
See, that's
There's been
just-
a few things where I just dodge way too early,
Yeah.
and then the attack actually happens.
And I just end up fighting that guy. I just end up in this loop of just like constantly dodging because I have no idea when he's actually going to like slam his hand down.
Is it a variable pattern as well?
What do you mean?
As in, like, Sometimes it'll
Does
be
it
5
change?
seconds. Sometimes it'll be 3 seconds.
No, it's
No, I
it's
think it's the same
I did
duration.
eventually like get used to it, but going in there, like my instincts are to dodge when I think it would come down.
Yep.
And he
Near
would
end.
hold it up longer
Mhm.
and longer, and then yeah, and like like in other Dark Souls games, there are enemies that would do that, but I don't really remember that on any of the bosses. Like like Dark Souls 3 had a bunch of bosses that you could get into a rhythm with,
Yeah.
and it's almost like it was like a rhythm game at that point.
Yeah.
Like there was one boss in particular of Dark Souls 3. I think he was called like the something or other dancer. Like he had that in his thing, and his attacks were all rhythm based.
Yeah.
Like it would, yeah. You could pick up the rhythm, and then
Yeah.
once you did that, you would just dodge on the rhythm and never get hit. And that was like my favorite fight.
Yeah, that sounds
That's
awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
That sounds like super fun. And I've played games with similar feeling things. You get into
Yeah.
a flow state. You feel
Yeah.
like you are completely in control. You feel unified with your character. Like it's
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
that's the magical state you want to be in.
Yeah.
If the Souls games just feel like they're out to troll that though. Where it's like,
I don't know.
you think you're in a rhythm, but surprise, there's a jelly on your head.
It's a jelly on your head.
But I also get to Paul's point that like very few games feel as rewarding when you succeed. And I think that's the primary appeal here. It is a form of like heightened stress followed by reward, and like it's got a sort of gambling aspect to it in that regard, where it's like the anticipation rises, and then you get that dopamine hit, and it feels amazing.
Yep.
And the things that may not actually be random but feel random only add to that. Things like jellies falling on your head, or dudes stepping out from behind
Yeah.
nooks and crannies.
Yeah.
It's just I think there's an amount of time and commitment that you have to. When you said you couldn't play after work,
Yeah.
when Breaking Bad was a thing, I couldn't watch that
Dude,
after work.
I was thinking of Breaking Bad while I was explaining
it's-
that, because I had that same feeling. Like you need to get into the mindset
Yeah.
to watch Breaking
you
Bad.
know it's great,
Yeah.
but you also know it's going to emotionally drain you.
Yeah. That's
And-
it. That drained. You feel drained
Yes.
after playing it. But, yeah.
There's certain movies and shows that are like that, and there are certain games that are like that. I would argue that Dark Souls is probably on the extreme end of that.
Yeah.
Like an Elden Ring by.
It's not a chill out game. It's not a game of like after like I've had a hard day's work, I just want to switch my brain off and not do anything. Like, do you need to really switch your brain on?
Yeah, but I think if you were willing to just go off and go on some random adventure, not into scary places, it wouldn't be as. It's so easy to go down that cave you find.
Yeah, that's the thing, and like when you, so I had a little bit of that where I was just like not taking things too seriously and just like adventuring around. But that was only when I got to a point where I basically like leveled to a point where nothing really was like too much of a threat in the first sort of zone. And I was just like, I'm just going to go around and like explore all the corners and all the things that I'd never gotten to. And I found a bunch of like secrets and random items and little dungeons and stuff that I hadn't found before. And it was cool.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
And there was
But you know what?
Yeah.
Games can do that without the stress.
Yeah. But
Zelda is like is that what you're describing there?
Yeah, it's all Zelda.
Is Zelda without the grind?
I know. There's actually something in Elden Ring that was taken straight from Zelda, like 100% taken from Zelda.
Korok seed?
No, it's the. Do you remember on the tablet that Zelda has? There's pictures, and if you go to the location if you find the location of that picture,
Yep. You have a cutscene.
You have a cutscene. Well, throughout Elden Ring, you find these like paintings that people that are just around, and they're paintings of places in the world. If you go to that area, like this ghost sort of painter shows up and gives you like an item or like an ability. Did you know that?
No, I got the paintings.
Yeah.
But I haven't found any of the places.
Yeah. So I went and like I had I think 3 paintings, and one night I was like, I think I know where these are. I'm just gonna go see if I can find them, and I just roamed around looking for them.
Yep. That's cool.
Mm.
It's also the most annoying mechanic in Zelda.
Really?
Yeah, it really is.
I
I mean,
like
I've only
that,
found
though.
3 of those paintings.
Mm. I think part of it is the execution in Zelda.
Yeah.
I love Breath of the Wild,
Mm.
but graphically it is much simpler
Yeah.
in Elden Ring, and
Yeah.
so it's much harder to find
Well,
the distinct
there was.
landscape that these things may be trying to convey.
I remember in Zelda there was one shot that just looked like a forest, and I'm like,
Yeah,
there's a bazillion
Yeah.
forests in this game. Like, how am I supposed to
Yeah.
find the exact one? Like, it's insane.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe even it's probably a better execution of that
Mm.
same idea in Elden Ring, where things are much more distinct.
Yeah,
There's like these interesting architecture
Yeah,
elements.
there's clear land, like similar-ish to Zelda. There's clear landmarks all over the place with these, like, there's the obvious ones are the giant trees that are everywhere.
Yeah.
And one of the
Mhm.
paintings I found had this giant tree in the background and like this like ruined arch in the foreground. So I was like, well, clearly I had an idea of what tree it was. So I was
Mhm.
like, clearly it's just finding the right kind of
Ruins nearby. Or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Mm.
It was good. And then another painting had like the starting church that you walk out of, like in the foreground, and then in the far background there's like the castle that you is the first castle that you go to.
Yeah.
So I'm like, pretty much a good idea where I know where that is.
Mm.
Like, yeah, it's a good game.
So I hear.
Yeah, you should.
It's a game
play
I
it.
think I would rather borrow.
Yeah, I think you should borrow it because like I get that you have limited time with a child, and it's definitely a game that you have to, like Breaking Bad. You got to sit down and be like, you got to mentally prepare for
Yeah.
in some way.
Yeah, like even I started just I'm one of the like 5 people in the world that subscribe to the Nintendo Online expansion pass.
Oh yeah,
And because I wanted to play Banjo-Kazooie.
yeah.
And great game, by the way. They in the last month or two also added Majora's Mask,
Oh yeah,
which is another fantastic game.
yeah.
But that one's kind of emotionally taxing as well, and it's also intellectually taxing. It's,
Right, yeah.
got this. I don't know why I'm talking about a 20-year-old game at this point, but it's got this. Have you played Majora's
No,
Mask?
I haven't
Paul?
actually played
Do
it.
you know anything about it?
I think I've seen parts of speedruns.
Okay, yeah. So the core mechanic is, the moon is falling on this town,
Mm.
and it's going to destroy it in 3 days. And so you have 3 days to do all the things you need to do, but you have the capacity to start those 3 days again, and some elements of what you do are saved, but only some.
Okay.
And so, it is about making incremental progress and resetting, incremental progress, resetting.
Hmm.
You basically are slowly unlocking the tools to access more parts of the world,
Yeah.
and resetting, and doing all of these things within this small time window. And the world constantly changes over the course of these 3 days as people like leave to escape the collapsing moon, or just events unfold. And so, in addition to all of this sort of gameplay loop, you're also trying to track patterns, like, oh, this guy's here at this time, and he's gone at this time. This store is only open during these hours.
Yeah.
These events only happen in this sequence across these days, and I have to be at these points at these times to achieve this quest, that sort of thing. And that's a game that I'm really enjoying it, but I can only play it in little chunks.
Yeah.
And
Do you have to keep notes of all the little bits that?
not yet, at least.
Hmm.
Though one of the good things about Majora's Mask is because of this like set time frame, which you can kind of double. You have the capacity to slow down time,
Okay.
but you've got this set time frame, and you can. It's not an inconceivably long amount of time that you could sit there and spend, admittedly, a long session focused on this one objective.
Yeah.
And you follow it through for the 3 days, and then if you achieve it, awesome. You reset it, and the game saves, and you've got that done.
Hmm.
So, for the most part, you can just kind of focus on a thing and get it done. So you don't necessarily need to take notes, at least not yet. I think there is
Okay.
maybe one quest that is like quite complex.
So it's not too like intertwined where you need to keep. track of
not
all
for the
of
most
the-
part, no.
Okay.
But it's also, as far as Zelda games go, it's very grim because it's an apocalypse story or a pre-apocalypse story.
Mm.
Well, there's people who are accepting their fate. There's people who are like denying it. Also in the context of like the world's political
Yeah.
state,
Oh,
it
wow.
feels very applicable. Like people-
Really?
like well, like people who are denying the moon is falling on them.
Yeah.
Like, and you can see it, and it's the last 24 hours, and they're
Mhm.
like, I don't know why everyone's leaving town. These people are idiots. And so like you go that, and it's like, oh, this is getting a little real,
They're like-
actually.
What are they like? The moon's always been that close. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So it's a particularly apt game at this point.
Yeah.
So there's an
Yeah.
emotional toll there as well.
Wow.
But I think I'm just gonna stick with that while everyone else is playing Elden Ring.
Yeah.
In my 25-year-old game.
We could always play Elden Ring in 25 years.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Go back then.
And be like, this is so quaint.
I like how easy this game
Such
is.
a relaxing game.
It doesn't just randomly punch me in the face with an actual sensor. It's,
Yeah. It's a shame. I don't know how, because I'm playing it on PC. You can't share PC games.
I'm considering buying a PlayStation later this year.
Oh, okay.
But I also might just buy it on PC if the price drops low enough. Your PC, you got it. It's reasonably new, right?
Yeah, I think I got it a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is about 3 or 4 years old at this point.
Right,
So I
yeah.
suspect I might need to wait until the next PC,
Yeah.
whenever that
I,
is.
I do get some
PC 5.
I do get some weird lag parts though.
I've heard performance is bad on PC.
Yeah, like I was talking to one of the guys at work about it, and like they were having the same issue.
Yeah.
And they reckon it's because that this open world thing is like when it loads in a new sort of, I don't know, world
Area.
chunk or
Yeah.
something, there can be this like lag
Yep.
spike thing.
Yep.
And one of the guys at work was saying he was fighting a boss that was right between basically on a loading point of world things and just getting like weird lag.
Interesting. See, that seems like bad design.
Yeah.
In terms of like how you actually handle those assets, because
Yeah.
Zelda does the same thing, where it will load world chunks,
Mm.
and exploits would be found where if you're gliding
Oh yeah.
at the point of these world chunks, and you like pause the game, and you,
Yeah.
like if you manage to pause it on a frame where it's loading, it will like double your speed
Oh, wow.
while you're gliding, and so like
Wow.
this is a known thing.
Yeah.
But what they don't do is keep loading the world chunks on like this very narrow strip. Like, they've got a big buffer area,
Yeah, yeah.
so you don't get locked in these like loading.
Yeah. It seemed weird. Yeah.
Yeah,
But other than
playing
sounds
that,
like a
on-
bad game.
I'm playing on PlayStation.
Oh,
I've noticed some frame drops a couple times.
Yeah.
But it does seem like it was first developed for PlayStation.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. I wonder if this is going to be a. I mean, they re-released Demon's Souls.
Mm,
Do you reckon they'll re-release Elden Ring on the PlayStation 6,
probably.
the PC 7?
It's such a huge giant game. Like yeah, I think they will. Like it's just gonna. I imagine it's like how
Skyrim.
Skyrim has that like
Mhm.
life, and
GTA 5.
GTA 5 has that
Mhm.
life. Like I think this might have that as well. Just constantly getting re-released because people still play the old Dark Souls games all the time.
Mm.
Like they just find newer and newer way. It's like finding the most obscure way of beating that game. Like there's this whole community about like I only do it with like completely naked and like only using punches and never leveling up. Like and people beat the game that way. Like
They should do that with the Zelda. Oh wait, they did that 5 years ago. Crazy.
So
Crazy.
what is the deal with the starting Elden Ring as the naked character with the stick thing? Because it seems like everyone that
Oh.
plays has played the previous games
Yeah.
Mhm.
starts the game that way. And I started, I'm like, that dude's a knight.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start this game as a knight.
yeah.
I think
Vanguard.
even I could answer this one,
Yeah.
right? It's you trade gear for stats, right?
Yeah.
So if you're covered in armor, you're not going to be like moving as quickly. Your rolls are going to take up more stamina or go more slowly.
Yeah,
yeah.
And movement is so important in those games.
Yeah,
Hmm.
you also like those pre-made characters also start, I think, around level 10,
Yeah.
and they already have a bunch of stats and a bunch of like weapons and stuff. The naked characters start at level 1, and they have 10 stats and everything. But the equivalent, like, they will actually end up with more stats than the pre-made characters. So by the time the character gets to like level 10,
Right.
they actually have more
overall.
more overall, but they do start out insanely weak.
Mm.
And it also, like, I wanted to, like, one, because I was like, I've not actually played a Dark Souls game as that naked character,
Okay.
but I was like, oh, I know what this game is about. I
Mm.
can play as that character. It's fine. And like, I liked the idea of finding my class as I played.
Yeah, because I the class I picked, I pretty much stuck to.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
kept playing the game like that because that's how I learned to play through starting like that.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Um,
It reminds me of, do you remember? I mean, it reminds me of this beginning of Zelda. You start with a stick.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of that
But
island
everyone
in
starts
Zelda.
with a stick.
Sure, but it reminds me also of that island where you...
Eventide.
Yeah, where in Zelda, where you basically have all your gear stripped away and you,
Yeah.
you start with no clothes and a stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I love that as it's a microcosm of the whole advancement system as a quest.
Yeah,
It's great.
it is really cool. But yeah, I just knew what I was in for. So and that made me play in a certain way for the first like 6 hours or so
Yeah.
of like being ultra careful, like not
God,
you know
6 hours of being ultra careful because you'll die in one hit.
yeah. Like I was saying, like a lot of my gameplay in those early hours was hiding in a bush and waiting for the enemy to turn its back and then
And how
backstab
many,
it.
real quick, how many years did you wait for this game?
Oh man,
Blake's still hiding in that bush.
yeah.
It's just like, I get it. It's funny to me that like, people wait literally like 5-10 years or whatever for this game and
To
they're
hide
like,
in the bush.
oh, I can't wait to play 6 hours of hiding in a bush.
Hiding in a bush. But then it was such a great journey because as I got stronger, as I collected gear, it was like the collecting gear part was awesome.
Mm.
Like I was just like finding gear and being like, I'll use this, and then I'll find something that's better and be like, I'll use this. It was just this like almost survival kind of gameplay of just like cobbling together something that I can use to defend myself. And like I went through several different weapons until I actually found a weapon that I like a
Hang on.
lot and I'm using now.
So you're liking a game where you start off with nothing.
Yeah.
You have to cobble together things just to get through combat,
Yeah.
and you're going through multiple weapons?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Sounds like GTA, right?
Yeah, it sounds exactly like GTA. It's a Zelda joke, is the joke I'm
okay.
making.
Yeah. Like, look, Nick, I'm like, this is the thing is that
You haven't
I
beat Breath
feel-
of the Wild.
I feel
you have
like-
to beat it.
I feel like I feel like anyone liking this game you consider as like an attack against Zelda.
No, I don't consider
It's
it
just
an attack
like
against
an
Zelda.
open world.
I just
Zelda is an open world.
I just think it's interesting to me the things that appeal in this game.
I did think of it like I did think this is so much like Zelda.
See, I kept thinking it was like Skyrim. That was
Yeah.
and it was like it felt like the first game since Skyrim that felt that way.
Right. Wow.
What was it about Elden Ring that felt like Skyrim?
Just the exploring and it being massive and giant fantasy world.
Mm.
It is one of the first games I've had in a while that the size of it has been surprising.
The size of it is bonkers.
Yeah.
It's still bonkers.
And I think they do a really good thing that I remember like Morrowind, I think, did this, where you don't see the full size of the map.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking
You are like revealing the map as you go, and
Yep.
your actual map screen increases in size as you find new parts of it. So
Yeah.
you actually don't know how big the map is.
that sort of thing I actually really like
Mm.
because there's always a sense of overwhelmingness in a game where that is big, where you like Zelda. I'm gonna use the example.
Yeah.
You start off on that plateau, but you can zoom out the map and
Yeah, and you just go,
this
"Whoa."
world is huge.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
And you can feel overwhelmed,
Mm.
and it also kind of kills some of the surprise.
Yeah, because like it's that thing of like it's that thing of like, imagine playing Zelda and you start off at that plateau and that's all you see in the map. If you went to your map screen, you only see the plateau, but you can clearly see out beyond the plateau, and you're like, well, how big is this world?
Yeah.
And then when you
As
unlock
as
the
you
next
actually
thing,
start
boom,
moving
the
out.
map
Yeah.
gets a little bit bigger, and you're
Yep.
like, how big does this thing get? You
Yep.
have, and it's I really, really like that feeling in Elden Ring.
And
And
also, you might be looking at an area of the map and where you are on it, and you know that there's a cliff up there, and there's a whole layer above you
Mm.
that you haven't been able to get to yet.
Mm.
There's one spot where I still don't know how the hell to get there. I can run around underneath it,
Yeah.
but I can tell from the symbols on the map that I'm not.
Oh.
You're not
what
seeing
I'm
the
looking.
things.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know, it's great. And then there's a whole, so that's the map of the world. There's also a point where you go below the ground and you discover there's another map of an underground thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was a moment where I was like actually surprised in this game. Like, I
Yeah.
thought going into it, I know what these games are like.
Mm-hmm.
I know what to expect, and then I found this underground thing, and it blew me away.
Yeah.
I had
Yep.
no idea what to expect
Yeah.
going into it. It was a cool process.
Why did you get it? If you
A bunch
didn't
of
know
people
it,
were talking about it, and then I watched a 10-minute YouTube video of a guy talking about what to. It was just like a quick review.
Okay.
And I figured give it a go.
What do you usually play? Well, like, what was the game you played before this?
I was actually playing PoE before.
Mm-hmm. I've
This
heard that's
came out.
good.
What else have I played recently? I did try to get back into Dead Cells, very unsuccessfully.
Mm-hmm. That's a hard game, but that's also a game that doesn't feel unfair the way I think the Dark Souls game. Like, okay, the ground can collapse in Dead Cells, but it warns you.
Got a real thing about collapsing ground.
Yeah, actually, maybe the ground doesn't even collapse in that game.
You can break it.
You can break.
You can get
yeah.
a skill that causes. Oh no.
Maybe
Maybe you can break it anyway.
No, you definitely can't. You need a skill.
Okay.
But and there are monsters that will like one shot you from off screen, but you can see the attack coming.
Okay.
Like there's a lot of these things are they're signposted, telegraphed, and you just
Honestly,
I get it.
Dead Cells is harder than Elden Ring, by in my opinion, anyway.
Dead Cells is really hard. The combat requires really precise timing and movement, and navigating the world requires like planning to some degree in some areas in particular. Like I'm thinking about the one with the darkness that sort of encloses around you and the torches. And there are some enemies that are very, very difficult, have a lot of health, deal a lot of damage, and their moves are hard to predict. You're talking about an enemy that raises its weapon and has weird timing on its attack. Dead Cells has enemies like that.
Yeah.
But those aren't the elements that I find frustrating in a game like Dark Souls. It's always the things that are like not telegraphed and are hidden information for no real apparent reason.
Yeah,
like
I get it.
That could become an egg thing. I know I talk about it.
Yeah,
but the wait time could have been 3 seconds.
Yeah, I get it.
I think you can get like this artificial. You can make like a game seem infinitely large if you have enough secret things, though, right? Because how many other things like that are undiscovered?
Yep. I don't mind secret things. I think the thing I want is for those secret things to make sense and not feel unnecessarily trolly.
Yeah, there is definitely some like way too convoluted things in Elden Ring.
When I say that, there's games where it's like there are secrets that are like you have to do a bunch of complicated stuff to find it, and it's cool. Like Mario 3, you have to duck behind a white block and then run through the entire level behind the white block.
Yeah,
and then you get a magic flute, and that's like a secret. That's sort of like, and that's no one's gonna tell you about that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
but is that
Actually,
the level skip flute thing or
Yeah.
something? Yeah, but that seems like an actual cheat to me. That's like unlocking a
it's
cheat.
a
right?
gameplay mechanic, so I would argue that
Yeah?
this is similar to like a secret area
Okay.
in a sense, right? And you know what? That's not great game design, but I totally get where you're coming from, Paul. When it's like, a secret like that makes that game feel much larger than necessarily it is, and there's definitely value in that.
Well, it seems like it's an easy way to make things seem larger than they are.
Yeah.
I think the thing you get hung up on, and the thing I understand is that doing that whole become an egg thing is to unlock an entire area of the
Yeah.
game. If it was just a quirky like Easter egg, basically, you become an egg and maybe you get
You fight a boss, and that's it.
yeah, and something like that. Like that's it. But it's like you get an item that if you want to progress into not progress in the actual game, but if you want to experience 100% of what the game has to offer, you have to do the stupid thing that
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's no way you would have like I was just thinking just now that even like there's no reason you would go up on this tree like to this bird's nest. Like they could even put a glowing item up there
Mm.
that would make you even
Go up there.
consider that
Yeah.
you could get up there.
Yeah.
You know,
Or even the painting that you're talking about that says it needs a special item. It
could have a bird in it.
could have
could
a
have a
bird in it.
big bird in it.
It could be a message about like
Yeah.
patience opening the path, or something.
Maybe it does have a big bird in it, and I just never noticed.
I wonder if there's just clues in places. That,
Yeah.
It could be. It could be. You know, and maybe I'm totally wrong about how stupid this thing is.
Yeah, but also this was I think they have refined their whole gameplay since Dark Souls 1.
You say that, but how many times do you have to hit that wall?
Yeah, but here's the thing I heard. I don't know if this is true. It's a speculation. But I heard that the only reason people found that because there is an item in the game that if you equip it, it does reveal secret walls.
Okay.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
they would see that this wall is like, I don't know, maybe it's glowing or something.
Yeah, and then
And then they hit it and it doesn't stop. So they just keep hitting it. and
Did
then
you
they-
know that the number of times you have to hit that wall varies by weapon type?
I mean, that makes sense.
so it's a wall with HP.
Did you
Yeah.
Did you know that some weapons don't break the wall?
Oh. So you would need so it would make sense though. So this makes sense because there's enemies in the game that are those the mines. There's miners that have that are basically all rock
Oh
kind
yeah.
of guys. I have a like slashing weapon. It does like very terrible damage on them.
Uh-huh.
But I had to so I have another weapon that is just like a what is it called? Like a morning star thing.
Hmm.
That does a different type of damage that really just obliterates them.
Yeah.
Like it's basically a hammer.
Yeah.
It's just
I've had some bosses where it wasn't even swapping the weapon, but the first like 10 times you hit them,
Mm.
it does almost nothing, and
Yeah.
then something happens, and
you-
they start taking like way more amounts of damage.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know what it is
Yeah.
about it or whatever, but
My
Good design though.
yeah
well, I kept hitting them.
Yeah.
It started working.
yeah. I have a weapon that has a bleed effect on.
Yeah.
So then there's a thing where if that builds up on an enemy, their next hit they take a huge chunk
Oh
of life.
yeah.
So it can seem like you're doing no damage, and then
Mm.
suddenly that procs and you do a huge chunk.
Mm.
But then you don't continue doing that much damage. So I don't know what.
Well, I think this is like some hidden armor stat or something where
Breaks.
you like stagger them or something, but
Right.
they don't visibly change.
Yeah, interesting.
And it doesn't take that many hits.
Huh. Maybe it is. I mean, oh god, maybe it is a troll thing where they're just like, you thought this enemy was tougher than it really is.
but-
All right. Well, we're pretty much out of time. But I'll read out. Should I read out a question?
Yep.
Okay. This is. Well, we've got a bunch.
Yeah, read out that top one.
That top one.
Yeah, it's.
Okay.
I've cut it into a few sections.
Did
I?
Maybe. Sort of. Yeah. Okay.
think.
This is from Robert, who is
Yeah.
a longtime listener, and we met him when he came to
Yeah.
ExileCon.
Mm.
Oh, cool.
He said, "Heyo, while patiently waiting for the next episode, I wanted to share that I finally did it. Over a year after its release, I finally beat Maven yesterday for the first time. Using you as ambassadors for the team, I wanted to shout out how epic this whole fight is. Arena design, theme, voice acting, sound design, and music all come together to some absolutely gorgeous symphony. As a previous audio engineer, I can't get over how crisp and awesome the SFX and voice lines are, and Camille's score is just jaw-dropping. Needless to say, I suck at bossing, and I needed 5 tries to succeed. Rip 500 Chaos Orbs. Boy, am I happy I finally got it down. Also, I can't stop thinking that Maven is actually Bex playing with the player base. Well,
That's good theory.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Robert. That was I guess one of the last things I worked on at GGG.
Right. Yeah. I made that arena as well.
Well.
So-
Look at Braggy.
Yeah.
Braggy Blake
Yeah.
here.
Well, it was me and texture artist.
It does
Stan,
look really good. though.
So it was both of
Mm.
us.
Yeah.
That area is cool.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much, Paul, for filling in.
Oh, good. That's fun. Just sit down, talk games.
That's really what it is.
Mhm.
That's podcasting, baby.
Mhm.
We're a very unique podcast in that it's 3 white guys specifically at this point, talking about talking about games. So,
Yep. Yeah.
we'll be back in a couple weeks, hopefully, along with you, Paul.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
I'll do another one.
If you got any questions, dear listener, email frontseatquestions@gmail.com. Maybe we'll read them out. Sometimes we do.
Sometimes
we
we
just
do.
did.
We just did. Yeah.
We love hearing
Was that
from
a
you.
question?
No, it wasn't. It was just it was a brag, I guess.
Sometimes we read them out.
If you want us to feel good about ourselves, send us something nice, and we'll say it out loud.
Yeah. If you can keep it fairly short, because
shorter is better.
there was an email which I responded to a while back that I really wanted to read out, but it was like way too long, so I just had to. I'll respond to the long ones in the email, but
Yeah.
like if you want,
If you want it read out,
I'd
keep it
rather
short.
that we are able to read them out, and
Yep.
it's like if they're a little bit shorter, then we can definitely read them out.
I'm
Yeah.
for sure going to send through how.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys. Thank you, Blake. Thank you,
Cool.
Paul. Thank you, listeners.
Thank
We'll
you.
be back in a couple weeks. Bye.
Talk about Elden Ring. Could talk about. I never got to rant about Jedi Fallen Order.
What even is that?
It's it's like it's a Star Wars game. You're playing as a Jedi apprentice
Hmm.
After Order 66, so after the Empire's taken over. But it's got like Dark Souls mechanics, and I
interesting.
don't think they're implemented well. And it's probably the most infuriating game I've ever played. And I felt like throwing my controller. Like I literally felt it's the only game I played since I was a child that I almost threw my controller across the room.
I definitely had moments like that in Elden Ring.
I
Like I was literally stomping my foot in frustration.
I get frustrated in Elden Ring for sure, but like Elden Ring, I've always felt, and like FromSoft games have always been tough but fair, you know,
Yeah.
like a strict father. But like this Jedi Fallen Order game was like, oh, we want to be. It's like, oh, we want to be like that, and don't really get the fairness of it. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like it just never really gelled with me. Like the combat, I never felt like I got a handle on it all the way through the game.
Right.
Like right to the end, I'd be like, I don't even know how I beat that. I just flailed around and somehow blocked stuff and looked really cool. But like there was like I felt like there was an absolute disconnect between what I was doing on the screen and what I like my inputs.
Yeah.
What they did real well though is that like the lightsaber when you're fighting like stormtroopers like and like lower level enemies feels great because they're a one shot, you know, which they should be. But then you come up to points where like a stormtrooper will have one of these electric bats that can block a lightsaber, and like you're getting wrecked because it's Dark Souls combat. You're getting wrecked by this one stormtrooper, and if there's a group of them and they get behind you, and it's like because it's all so much timing. When all of their attacks kind of like are out of sync, there's no way that there's no opening for you to attack, so you just get like pummeled on. And I think I did mention this on. Yeah, well, that was fun. You could use the Force and push people off things and do cool stuff. I do remember we did talk about this on the podcast because I said that I was saying that the best combat style I could find was like rolling in, like dodging in a forward roll, doing a few lightsaber hits, then rolling out. And it's like, and like I remember Sav. Yeah, I remember Sav being like, that doesn't sound very like Jedi. It's like rolling around.
Have you seen that Elden Ring video where the guy makes his character look like Sonic?
Oh
and
my
he uses,
god!
There's I think it's an Ash of War where when you roll,
Yeah.
when you dodge, it deals damage,
Oh what?
and he just goes in and PvPs a bunch of people
Yeah.
rolling around, and no one can do anything because
Oh my
he's rolling.
god, that's
right?
so good.